Well, okay. It's been a little while. I decided to do a music iceberg. This one piqued my interest, so I'm doing it, and if it's already out there on the internet, well, you get to have the courtesy of hearing me do it anyways. So yeah, here's a music iceberg explained. And just a quick warning, this stuff can get a little dark, and a lot will have to do with deaths and conspiracies. I am going to be taking out some of the entries due to some of their content pertaining to some explicit or abusive subjects, and I don't really feel comfortable putting them on the channel just up front. But if you want the full content of the iceberg, it will be available in the description below, where the creator has linked explanations for each entry on the list. Elvis is still alive. Supposedly, there were waves of Elvis sightings after his death, most notably the belief that an extra in Home Alone was actually Elvis Presley himself. Paranormal researcher Ben Radford, who caught wind of this, stated, "Why fake your death and then turn up as an extra in a popular movie? How could the cast and crew have failed to notice the presence of one of the most famous figures in the world? Even if he looked very different, could he have disguised his voice and mannerisms?" Eventually, it turned out that, yeah, the extra was Gary Richard Grott, a guy who knew the director personally, and starred as an extra in many of his movies. In regards to the theory itself, it's one of the most well-known pop culture conspiracy theories to date. Beatles more popular than Jesus controversy. This refers to the comment John Lennon made in an interview regarding Christianity. Quote, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I didn't argue about that. I'm right and I'll be proved right. We're more popular than Jesus now." The interview was for London's Evening Standard, and when published in the UK, it didn't really spark any controversy at all. However, when published in the US, the situation was quite the total opposite. As well as the editor placing in some other offensive remarks regarding racial discrimination John Lennon made, they made the quote the headliner of the interview, and John Lennon's face was plastered all over the front of the magazine. That sparked the controversy. This caused a massive outrage amongst the US, leading to radio stations refusing to play music from the Beatles, as well as bonfires being made of their music, many protests occurring at their concerts, and just generally overshadowing their work being made around that time. John Lennon's assassin stated that he was partly motivated by John Lennon's comments about religion. Marilyn Manson. Yeah, this is just kind of referring to Marilyn Manson. There are countless of controversies surrounding the guy, as well as some recent ones which I cannot bring up, but yeah, I mean, it's Marilyn Manson. Courtney Love killed Kurt Cobain. So in summary, people believe Courtney Love is responsible for the death of Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain was unhappy with their marriage and intended to divorce Courtney Love. Because of this, Courtney perhaps thought it'd be best to murder Kurt, so that she could inherit all of his possessions rather than just half from the divorce. Because Kurt Cobain has become the highest grossing dead artist among all other artists, including Elvis Presley and Michael Jackson, she'd also have gained a lot of profit from this. Regarding the suicide note, a handwriting practice sheet was found in Courtney's handbag. While the first portion of the suicide note, analyzed by handwriting experts, seemed to be Kurt's legitimate handwriting, where he addressed his fans, the bottom part, alluding to his suicide, contains discrepancies, which, when paired with the practice sheet, has identical characters. Some theorize the note was not intended to be a suicide note at all. Montero video / Satan shoes. This entry is referring to the music video for Montero, a song by Lil Nas X. The music video depicts, well, many different kinds of things that I think deserves an explanation on its own. But to put it simply, it's his daydream about being sent to heaven before going straight to hell. There was a bit of an outcry, as previously Lil Nas X was the reason why every parent's child was dancing around pretending to be a cowboy. So seeing him release something with imagery such as depicted in Montero was something perceived by them as essentially something out of a nightmare. As for the Satan shoes, a pair of shoes that knocked off the Nike Air Max 97 was released alongside the music video, and supposedly was made with a single drop of blood for each pair. There were only 666 of these pairs of shoes made. They were priced at $1,018 each. This was in reference to Luke 10:18. Within under a minute, the shoes were sold out. 27 Club. So the 27 Club is a list of musicians that have died at 27. It's not just restricted to musicians, however, it's also applicable to actors, artists, and other celebrities. It's nothing scientific at all, more just some weird phenomenon that occurred throughout the history of pop culture. It wasn't until Kurt Cobain's death at 27 that the idea of a 27 Club was established by the public. 17 years after Cobain's death, Amy Winehouse died at 27 in 2011, re-sparking the idea. Interestingly enough, 3 years prior to her death, she'd expressed fear of dying at 27. Aside being some strange phenomenon, it's nothing more than just a weird coincidence. Vanilla Ice uncleared sample. Referring to Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice had used a sample from David Bowie and Queen's Under Pressure without any permission to do so. This caused a lawsuit against Vanilla Ice, which brought attention to the lack of action against making usage of copyrighted material without the right to do so. Despite the agreement being made over royalties, some claim David Bowie and Queen should have deserved more justice for the missed revenue and credibility they've lost over this dispute. Astroworld concert deaths. On November 5th, 2021, 10 lives were lost due to a crowd crush that had occurred at the Astroworld concert, and several more hundred were injured over the incident. The event was due to a reaction from impatient and volatile attendees who lacked any common sense nor any regard for any persons around them. Staff and security were losing checkpoints throughout the entire day, and Travis Scott took the stage to make his appearance at 9:02 p.m. It was then that the incident had occurred, many attendees rushing to the stage, which injured many to the extent of having them hospitalized. This only worsened with Drake's later appearance in the show. Despite any of the crowd's attempts to have the singer stop the show in response to the injured concert goers, Scott proceeded, and those who attempted to inform him anything were ushered off. The show lasted for about a whole hour until he jogged off the stage with a farewell. Allegedly, he nor Drake had not known anyone was injured during the event. His later video on his Instagram story regarding the event was criticized for its lack of sincerity. Tupac fled to Cuba. People believe that rather than killed due to a drive-by incident, Tupac fled to Cuba. Suge Knight, friend and producer of Tupac's, and who was at the wheel of the car whenever Tupac was shot, claims that Tupac opened up to Knight about the idea of faking his death when they were in Hawaii. A part of this theory is due to Tupac's cremation, which was supposedly enacted quite swiftly after his autopsy. A bunch of other details refer to a body double and possibly even Fidel Castro being involved. This theory stretches out to much more absurd details, even going as far as to including the Illuminati. Charles Manson. During the 60s, Charles Manson was a struggling musician. It was after his conviction for the Tate murders that his other music was publicly released. Lots of his music was covered by various musicians throughout the years, particularly in writing. Lie is an album that was released in 1970 that contained much of Manson's music, which gained a following by those who were intrigued by the Manson case. Most songs that were covered have been derived from this album. The Story of Adidon. The Story of Adidon is a diss track made by rapper Pusha T and was aimed at Drake. The story goes that Pusha T released a track in his album Daytona titled Infrared, which spoke about allegations of Drake and ghostwriting. Drake released Duppy Freestyle just hours later, which Pusha T responded back with a tweet in the song The Story of Adidon. This song was praised for its vicious and harsh approach at Drake. It was also the song that exposed Drake for having a child and hiding that said child from the world. This was later confirmed to be true by Drake in his album Scorpion. As for the name, it was in reference to Drake's upcoming Adidas line, which was meant to reveal Adonis as his child and use him heavily for promotion. Suge Knight. Suge Knight is a former American music executive, convicted felon, and the co-founder and former CEO of Death Row Records. He's widely recognized for being a central figure in gangster rap's commercial success in the 1990s, working with various rap artists at the time, including Snoop Dogg and Tupac. He's got a long history of legal and personal troubles in his life. Prominently, in 2015, Knight crashed his car into two men, killing Terry Carter, a friend of his, and fled the scene in Compton, California. This led to a long court case where in September 2018, Knight was sentenced to 28 years in prison. Insane Clown Posse. Abbreviated as ICP, Insane Clown Posse is an American hip-hop duo that are very well known for their horror-style lyricism. ICP explicitly stated in one of their songs, however, that the underlying message in their music has always been about following God. Despite this, people find their lyrics about explicit content conflictive over this statement. Violent J, or Joseph Bruce, has gone on to state that the reasoning behind this is because they want a way to capture their audience, who are typically listeners that have grown up on the streets, and speaking straight religion to them would be deterring them. So they sort of have to speak their language, and slowly expose them to God. They've also gained a cult following by many who have been named juggalos, fans who don on clown face paint and other unique characteristics to differentiate themselves from normal society. Though mostly non-violent, some crimes and murders have been tied to those who have described themselves to be juggalos. This results in a divergence amongst the community between those who simply admire the music and those who take it up a step further and use the title for gang-related crime. Ozzy Osbourne Dove and Bat Incidents. So basically, on March 27th, 1982, Ozzy Osbourne, bit the head off 2 doves. Reportedly, they were dead, but nonetheless, he'd done the deed of eating the heads off 2 doves in front of a publicist who had been nagging at him at the time of the feast. He also mentioned that the dead bird tasted like tomato sauce. Understandably, he was thrown out of the building he was in when he dismembered the bird's heads. This wasn't the only time he bit off the head of an animal though, as in January of that same year, Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a bat that was thrown on stage. He apparently thought it was fake, though this was not the case, and since it was a bat, he had to be treated for rabies afterwards. Apparently, it was some sort of ritual back in the day for Osbourne to throw bits of meat to the audience, and the audience would throw back whatever they could sneak in the concert. As for the dove incident, however, it sounded a lot less unintentional and seemed he had full intent of having a hearty meal of dove head. Phil Spector killed someone. Phil Spector was a former music producer prominent in the 60s, and also very well known for his murder of fashion model and American actress Lana Clarkson. I won't go into detail about the murder, I will instead explain about what came after the murder. Phil Spector apparently went on to produce a track for Hargo Khalsa, following an interview from Khalsa for a tribute film for John Lennon. I can't imagine asking someone to produce a track for me while they're awaiting trial for murder, let alone step into their house. In 2007, Spector's murder trial began, but was declared a mistrial due to a hung jury, 10-2 for conviction. The retrial began in 2008, and the case went on and finally landed on a guilty verdict on April 13, 2009. On May 29, 2009, Spector was sentenced to 19 years to life in the California state prison system. Everywhere at the End of Time. This entry almost needs no introduction, but I digress. Everywhere at the End of Time is a 6-hour simulation album of what the progression of Alzheimer's disease feels like, produced by artist Leyland Kirby, aka The Caretaker. The stages of the album are artistic reflections of specific symptoms which can be common with the progression and advancement of different forms of Alzheimer's, to quote The Caretaker. Each stage has an official description, detailing the symptoms and how they are audibly affecting the listener. It's become internet legend to how sincerely and brutally this album affects its listeners, practically becoming a meme. The influence behind this work began with the ballroom scene in the film The Shining, the first album release being selected memories from the haunted ballroom. Insinuated by Kirby himself, it seems that Everywhere at the End of Time represents the death of the Caretaker alias itself. Fire Festival. This entry alone is just so massive with information and lore that my explanation alone cannot do it justice. I recommend watching the documentary Fire about this massive fraud scheme, as well as internet historians' video about the topic. To put it bluntly, however, Fire Festival was a gigantic scam pulled off in the year 2017. It was all planned by con artist Billy McFarland and rapper Ja Rule, with the intent of making a festival to promote their Fire app. Models were paid to be filmed for promotional footage of the festival, as well as lots of artists being booked for the event. However, the entire event was poorly planned and severely underfunded, with the entire event being estimated to cost $50 million US. They only had a loan pulled for $4 million US. That did not stop them, however, and this led to a series of terribly unfortunate events regarding legalities, poor attendee reception, convictions of wire fraud, and supposedly hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. The Shags. The Shags was an outsider rock and roll band consisting of 3 sisters, Helen, Betty, and Dorothy Wiggin, all from New Hampshire, formed in 1968. Considered one of the best and worst bands of all time, well, they're interesting. I listened to maybe about 2 of their songs before kind of knowing what the rage is about. Their formation was insisted upon by their father due to their mother's prediction of their rise to fame. At first, little to no attention was given to the band, and they had disbanded in 1975 following the death of their father. After a 1980 reissue, however, the band gained surprisingly high praise for their uniqueness, including being acknowledged to be one of Kurt Cobain's favorite bands. Their uniqueness stems from untuned guitars, rudimentary lyrics, and other things that you definitely don't want to hear on purpose. Paul is dead. One of the greatest urban legends in the history of music, the Paul is dead conspiracy theory alleges that Paul McCartney died in 1966 and was replaced by a look-alike. This theory became so prominent that even Paul McCartney parodied the theory with the 1993 album Paul is Live. What started out as a simple rumor circulating in London and universities stemmed out to become a heavily analyzed theory by psychologists, conspiracy theorists, and other experts within the field, with one solid evidence being a reverse section in the song Revolution 9 by the Beatles, where the words "Turn Me On Dead Man" is believed to be heard. Tim Harper's publication in the newspaper of Drake University is considered to be the first article to ever acknowledge the theory. Despite being logically flawed, it rose in popularity at a time where conspiracy theories were practically the rage, so it makes sense how it came to light so quickly. Milli Vanilli scandal. Milli Vanilli were a German-French duo founded in 1988, consisting of Fab Morvan and Rob Pilatus. Their international success led them to achieving a Grammy Award for Best New Artist on February 21st, 1990. However, it was then publicly revealed that Milli Vanilli was, in fact, a false musical enterprise, with Frank Farian behind the act. The truth came from the fact that Morvan and Pilatus did not sing any of the vocals on their musical releases, and were forced to give back their Grammy Award. Despite recording a comeback album in 1998, Pilatus was found dead on April 2nd of that same year, canceling the project altogether. Maroon 5 doesn't play Sweet Victory at the Super Bowl. This refers to the 2019 Super Bowl's halftime show, where Maroon 5, in fact, did not play Sweet Victory, despite petitions for Sweet Victory to appear in the show to pay tribute to Steven Hillenburg. Well, it did, technically, for about 5 seconds or so I guess we got that. Woodstock 99. Again, a super long and highly detailed disastrous event, which, again, I cannot elaborate to the fullest extent without recommending you to watch documentaries pertaining to the event, specifically the Netflix one, but I will suffice with a brief summary. Woodstock 99 was a music festival that, again, was poorly planned, and attempted to replicate the energy that Woodstock 69 had, which was peace, serene, and love, etc. You can probably guess that the exact opposite resulted from the event due to high-octane teenage adults, high-octane rock bands, high-octane drugs, and high-octane bullshittery. It became one of the most infamous music festivals in history for its extensive counts of injury, assault, and vandalism made by its concert goers, and that's putting it lightly. Animutation. Animutation is something I think everyone knows but doesn't know the name of. It's basically the official term for those videos that you'll find once you're in the deepest corners of YouTube, where you're watching a collage of random pieces of images with music in a language you usually can't understand, as well as a title you can't pronounce from a channel you can't pronounce filled with a dozen comments that you can't pronounce. That's literally what animutation is, except technically it is done through Adobe Flash, though that is now defunct, so we just have YouTube videos. Outsider music. This is a genre of music where artists exhibits little to no musical knowledge, childish nature, and or mental illness. Typically, this kind of music isn't recognized for its quality, but more for its quote-unquote honesty. Most enthusiasts perceive outsider music to be raw and honest, due to the lack of quality control outsider music typically has. Therefore, it's practically untouched. It is also typically not recorded in professional studios, or most of the time not recorded at all. Clear Channel Memorandum. So back in 2001, right after the 9/11 attacks, many broadcasting channels had altered their usual broadcasts in recognition of the attacks. Supposedly, There was a rumor that the Clear Channel had distributed a document to its broadcasters and subsidiaries that contained a list of songs that were deemed questionable by its lyricism or themes, mostly pertaining to stuff like death, airplanes, explosions, or even something as little as a simple reference to fire. It was Clear Channel's way of saying, maybe don't play these songs right now. There were a count of 165 suggestions, including the entire catalog from Rage Against the Machine. Even weirder, there were covers of songs that were allowed, yet the original one wouldn't be. It's been reputed by Clear Channel to not have existed in the first place, but that doesn't stop people from talking about it. Sinead O'Connor on SNL. In 1992, Sinead O'Connor was invited to appear as a guest to sing on SNL. At the end of her performance, in which she had sung War by Bob Marley, as she sung the words, "We have confidence in good over evil," she proceeded to hold up a picture of Pope John Paul II, tore the picture up, and threw it at the camera, stating to fight the real enemy. This created a massive reaction amongst the millions of viewers, especially devout Catholics. Sinead was banned for life by NBC and was booed during her shows, even having eggs thrown at her. She later elaborated the meaning behind the protest was the abusive behavior Catholics had against children from her experience, stating that she grew up in a harsh and brutal environment when she was little. She remains unapologetic about this event, and even reminisces fondly of it. Dark Side of the Rainbow. This is a theory suggesting that Pink Floyd's 1973 album, The Dark Side of the Moon, coincides with The Wizard of Oz. This theory was conceived by Charles Savage of the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, who published the article suggesting the theory in 1995. And it being the 90s, people made websites talking about their own experiences and moments about the odd phenomenon. Members of Pink Floyd insist that their album was in no way related to The Wizard of Oz. Music, Sia's movie. Music is a film directed by Sia, which is about a drug dealer named Zoo who becomes the guardian of her autistic half-sister Music. Yes! I am not making this shit up. It went on to win 4 Razzie Awards, one of them being Worst Director for Sia. The movie's representation of an autistic person is the worst part about this whole thing, as many people who has autism or know someone with autism were very offended by this. A commenter stated that her sister cried watching the trailer because of her love for Sia, yet couldn't watch it because of the bright colors, and the representation felt like somebody was bullying her sister right in front of her. The most mysterious song on the internet. I googled this and was very surprised to see that this subject has blown up so much over the internet that it earned its own Wikipedia page. Anyways, the most mysterious song on the internet, also known as Like the Wind, Blind the Wind, Check It In, Check It Out, or Take It In, Take It Out, is a recording of a song which its artist, name, and original record date are unknown. It is 2 minutes and 55 seconds long and categorized as post-punk. There is a long, detailed search for this song spanning over several years, all documented by YouTuber Wang, and I highly recommend checking out his videos for more information about it, as it's literally about to be a 4-year search now. Many people have been able to interpret words, radios it broadcasted in, the lead synthesizer, even found a higher quality audio clip, yet nobody's been able to come up with a legitimate result of what the song is. As a commenter stated, when the internet dies, this song will come up in the credits. FBI and the NWA. So NWA released Fuck the Police, classified as a protest song criticizing the police force. This led to one agent from the FBI sending a letter to their record company citing disapproval of the song, going on to list off individual officers that passed that particular year on duty. The action of sending this letter, with the misinterpretation that he represented the FBI as a whole, earned the sender a spot that was essentially the backseat of the bureau, and also caused a minor panic in the record company's office. Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. Once Upon a Time in Shaolin is an album produced by Wu-Tang Clan in 2015 and is prominently known for its extremely limited status, with only one copy of the album being made. It was made as a call to reinvigorate the value of music, being made in secret for 6 years and only ever being allowed to play at listening parties as part of a legal agreement regarding its commercial exploitation. It stands to be one of the most expensive pieces of music ever sold. Bits of the album can be found online, though there's hardly an intelligible version to be published of a single song. It's very unfortunate because by the sounds of it, it goes really hard. We most likely will never be able to actually listen to the album until the current holder is able to make the album more accessible to the public, which is the current goal. Anthony Fantano gives My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy a 6. Internet music nerd Anthony Fantano made a review over a decade ago on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. Despite being critically praised and earning Grammy Awards, Fantano gave the album a like to decent 6 out of 10. The video gained a negative like to dislike ratio, with many Fantano and Kanye West fans both being very greatly disappointed with the score. Much later in time, due to re-reviewing The Life of Pablo, due to changes being made to the album post-release, Fantano re-reviewed My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy as well. It scored itself a 5 to light 6, and was deemed overrated, so not much of a difference to the score was made. It did earn itself a better ratio in comparison to the previous review. Bobby Caldwell is white. This is a simple reference to the fact that Bobby Caldwell, an R&B/soul/jazz artist, was believed to be black by many in the 70s because of the anonymity of his appearance. The debut album didn't feature his appearance on the cover, so many were left to only know him through his voice, which many believed the songs were being sung by a black man. This was also because at the time his music was being played through black radio. So when Caldwell was going on tour, many audience members were surprised to find out that he was, well, white. John Lennon and the FBI. So apparently the FBI has 281 files on John Lennon, but refused to release any of them on the grounds that they contain national security information. 14 years later, the FBI were forced to release the documents due to litigation. Most of it is most likely politically charged and done out of concern for Lennon's anti-war activism. There was even an attempt to deport John Lennon, as well as charging him for drug charges. Bob Marley's death. Bob Marley died in 1981 from a skin cancer that was found underneath his toenail. Weirdly enough, conspiracy theories, as usual, surrounded his death, one particularly being that the CIA killed the Jamaican singer. In 1976, prior to a peace concert he was going to attend, shooters raided his house and shot Marley and his wife. Many speculated that the CIA ordered the hit, and when that was unsuccessful, they used the director's son, Carl Colby, to make Marley wear radioactive shoes as Colby was filming for Marley. Very outlandish, but it was really just cancer. Nick Cruz watched Rusty Cage videos before the shooting. Nicholas Cruz, convicted for the death of 17 individuals as well as harming 17 others, had his cell phone searched, exposing many of his online and virtual activities. Some of this revealed that he was watching Rusty Cage videos prior to the shooting, to which the YouTuber made a response video in which he evaluates the contents of the report, hilariously mocking Cruz for his degenerate behavior. It's kind of unfortunate because Rusty Cage, even though I hardly watch the guy, seems like a pretty decent guy to watch, and having his image tainted by a sad mistake of a human being is just a poor sight. Though it seems all's well, and Cruz is sentenced for life in prison following a deadlocked journey pertaining to a death sentence. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering how this pertains to music, Rusty Cage made up the Knife song. Murder of Yaki Gaddafi. Yaki Gaddafi was a founding member of hip-hop group Outlaws. At 19 years old, Gaddafi was found lying dead outside a friend's apartment. The murderer was Rashad Roddy Beal, whose cousin Napoleon, a former rapper of the group, stated that the shooting was accidental and Beal had turned himself in to the police. Gaddafi's family stated that the shooting was intentional and that Beal's family threatened witnesses. Police have gone on to state that the shooting was accidental and has no connection to the murder of Tupac. Beal and Gaddafi were very good friends, according to Napoleon, who'd introduced the two. Metallica played in all 7 continents. Metallica had earned a Guinness World Record for being the first musical act to play a concert on all 7 continents. They had flown out to Carlini Station in Antarctica to entertain 120 scientists with a 10-song set list that lasted an hour long. However, Nunatak, an indie rock band, also the house band of the Rothera Research Station, was the real first band to play in Antarctica and sold out a concert with just about 17 audience members. MC Hammer's The Funky Headhunter. I'm gonna go off on a whim and say this is referring to Pumps and a Bump, as that would be the more prominent song within the album due to its seemingly explicit music video, which depicts Hammer in a Speedo. The video was banned from MTV's music video rotation and had to be refilmed, featuring a cleaner music video with choreography. Mysterious Kenya song. Here's a bit of lost media for you guys. So according to Saturnius from the Lost Media Wiki forums, if that's how you can pronounce it, a song plays in a bit from the Filthy Frank show when the titular character is talking about different cultures picking up women. The song, weirdly enough, cannot be found anywhere else on the internet, and has led many to try to interpret the lyrics to find the source. A theory from another video featuring the same bit of audio used in the Filthy Frank video suggests that the song could very well possibly be bought from the deep web, as stated by the uploader of the video over how he got a hold of the song. The theorizer suggests Christianity in any of the originating countries the song could be from could be censored. Is this true? No one knows. But Defy Joe made a pretty nifty cover of the song, and I suggest you guys give that a listen. Somali pirates hate Britney Spears. Naval officer Rachel Owens stated in an article for The Guardian that Britney Spears' music was used to scare away Somali pirates. This results in pirates veering off quickly from the alarming sound of Britney Spears. He explains that the security team chose the music because they speculate that the pirates hate Western culture or music. So, yeah. The Most Unwanted Song. Released in 1997, the track The Most Unwanted Song was produced by artists Komar and Malamed, featuring composer Dave Soldier. I can definitely say that this song stimulates my brain in a way that I never want to be stimulated again. It's literally a song made to be unwanted. It's not like the Shags where it's unintentionally bad. It's made by people who know what they're doing to make the song intentionally bad. Operatic singing, children's choir, random synths being used with random instruments like horns and harps. It's just wow. Funnily enough, the song it was paired with, The Most Wanted Song, was actually criticized for sounding rougher than The Most Unwanted Song. Spencer Eldon. Spencer Eldon is a 31-year-old model who is more prominently known for being the 4-month-old baby photographed for the album cover Nevermind by Nirvana. In 2021, Eldon had pressed charges against Nirvana and anyone affiliated with the cover for various problems he felt had to be expressed, including his bare presence on the cover. He's also expressed a feeling of little success when viewing the scope of the whole album in the band. As of now, Eldon has made appeals in the lawsuit seeking damages from members of the band, as well as Courtney Love, Universal Music Group, and the photographer of the photo, Kurt Weddle. Weezer fanbase. This basically refers to the fact that the Weezer fanbase loves to take a dump on the band for some reason. It can be a lot of reasons really, but mostly being that it's Weezer. I know that's kind of broad to say, but really I don't listen to Weezer, but I can assume it's because of their legendary meme status and maybe that their fans are viewed as virgins, which they probably are. Anyways, take a trip down Weezerpedia if you dare. Hey, you made it. This is the end of part 1. Part 2 is coming up, but real quick, I just want to address the elephant in the room. It's been 2 years since my very first upload. That's not a very good look, and I've wanted to apologize for that. Life happened, and it's been a very busy time in my life, and my priorities had to change. But things are starting to line up again to where I can actually do what I want, and that's to make YouTube videos for you guys. And speaking of, I wanted to thank you guys for the good reception I've received in that first video. It honestly means a lot, and I really hope to continue to make good quality content for you guys because that's really what I strive to do. So yeah, part 2 is coming up, and I just wanted to thank you guys again for all the kind words, and I hope to keep doing this for you guys. Stay tuned. You won't have to wait 2 years for the next upload. I might work on some other stuff too, like video game related stuff. So if you want to hear about that stuff, that's definitely coming up soon. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.